Okay. Now what? Now what? Okay. Well, let's go with the King's Gambit. Or not. Wow. Okay, this is definitely feeling like a first here. Okay, some things to note. I need only move this knight in order to castle kingside. Like that. And then my king ends up here, my rook ends up here, and we move forward. What do you do to start? Control the center. I'm thinking about moving one of these four. I'm also thinking about what is unprotected. Nothing's unprotected. I could see this guy being unprotected soon after the knight moves, but that's about it. Pawn in the center, this pawn in the center, this pawn in the center. I like this as a start. After all that, I think this is a good one. Controlling one of the four center squares, moving any one of these four pawns, C, D, E, F, will contribute in some way to either the occupation or control, or both, of one of these squares, at least one of these squares. So now what? What should black be doing as a response? Playing the mimicking game with C5, saying, you know what, I'm going to play E5 instead to control this. Right now, if something isn't done, I could be playing D4, having two pawns side by side. Not a bad idea at all. From here, does my knight really have a better square than G3? Probably not. So what's the verdict on that knight? The verdict is get him out. Get him out. This knight, on the other hand, maybe wants to be tucked behind this D pawn. Not really a big fan of going here to obstruct any of my center pawns. If I do play here, it's going to be quite temporary. If I could say to myself, this is a hole, boom, boom, get him there right away. Or, what else? I'll probably want to do similar with my B pawn. Otherwise, my queen is dead to the game. However, I'm going to be a bit more aggressive and press forward two squares, challenge this pawn, get to a position where maybe I could open up the B file and my rook springs to life, or maybe I could push forward and gain a tempo at some point on a piece should they end up on one of these two squares. I think more possibilities are present by having the pawn on B opposed to just on B4 opposed to B3. What else? What else is the scoop here? Dark square bishop out. I'm really thinking about some queenside expansion, or or this. What about this diagonal is open towards the king, so there's a bishop check. I think that could turn out to be inconvenient to black. Oh. Bishop check. If the bishop blocks, we exchange bishops. I help black out development-wise a little bit, but long term, I could establish a pawn on B5 and then try and get one of these pesky knights to that C6 square. If there's no light square bishops on the board, follow up with B5 and then get a knight there somehow. That's what I would like to do. Bishop A4. There's also knight E3 to here. I think this is more to the point. Let's see how black first responds. Okay, so now the bishop can't move, not at least without allowing me to have that king go uncastled. Black is ready to castle on the next move. But what? How about I play my knight here? Oh, that's probably uncomfortable. Although that's probably not good. If I play my knight, or no. There might be something to it. Knight here, I'm threatening to win this pawn. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I was concerned about maybe a bishop coming here doing two things. One, hitting this pawn a second time, and two, threatening maybe to play here with the fork if my knight is on F5. Of course, I was threatening to take this pawn with check, and then if the king goes here, I could go maybe to the edge with my knight, but I don't know. I like this a bit better. My opponent is watching over F5. I think that's a very good idea. My knight on the edge, I think, is good. If g6 is played, and I play to g7 to give check, after king f8 is my knight trapped. Might not be trapped because I could follow up with bishop here, but I don't really want to be tethered to the defense of one of my pieces. These guys are not going to be so happy, my queen and bishop, with just watching out over a knight on g7. What I could do is, after g6, I could go elsewhere with my knight and say, you know what? If your pawn is on g6, your knight doesn't get to play. And maybe later, I could be considering bishop b2. Yeah, bishop to b2 and putting pressure on that knight for a second time, and maybe that knight would turn out to be lost. So now what? Okay. 2-minute warning, approximately. There will be a tournament coming up soon, very soon, in about 1/2 hour. So there's some weaknesses here. What is the pawn doing? What is it not doing? It's not watching over this, and I could attack it. So let's attack it. This is a problem. The bishop is no longer going to be in a spot to watch over it. If the pawn pushes, this knight is going to be licking his chops at the juicy, juicy square d5. I could also consider just planting my knight here, but I like just being able to rely upon d5. It's a nice, cozy square. It's a support point already by my c-pawn. And keep in mind what this earlier move did. It was watching over f5. All of a sudden, these squares light up. Both of them are accessible to both knights. Well, not both knights. Anyhow, both squares are available to my knights. That move, I didn't consider. I didn't consider that one. Okay. Well, I really don't want to move my knight. So what do you do if you don't want to move your knight? You be stubborn. Be stubborn. You say, I don't want to move that knight, and this queen has no business being in the center of the board like this with so many minor pieces. And my next move is going to be to flush this queen elsewhere. Remove the defender is the plan. Get out of there, queen. Remove the defender. You really don't want to ever be caught in a situation like that. You set yourself up for the tactic of fill in the blank. Who knows it? When one of your pieces is tethered to the defense of another piece or a pawn, you're setting yourself up for the tactic of name it. Who's going to get it? Typed first in Twitch. If you happen to be tuned in and listening, name that word. Yes! With the fastest fingers, Mr. Windmill 100. If you're re-listening to this, the not live version, that word that has been typed in the chat is deflection. And there were several typing that. Just Anand and Stumblebee and Nuke. Okay. Well, I could take this guy, but I'm not going to. He's a bad guy anyhow. He's obstructed. He can't be too happy. All these pawns are stopping him from being active. I'm going to throw this check in, or this one. I like this one. I'm going to go with this one. Let's give a check. Get my other knight here. I could give this check first. Let me do that. If the king goes here, I come back and give check. Or maybe take here. Yeah, I'd probably do that. Let's get rid of this bishop. That's definitely a more valuable one. And get here with check. And then Well, just want to trade a little bit more. Let's get rid of this. And then take here. And it's soon to be looking like... okay, well, actually, we're down on time. I forgot that part. Okay, good game, M. Lopez. Let's hit that rewind button. See if there's something else we could be doing with our setup. I think your response of this is fine. It's going with some symmetry. I would consider b5, just as I played b4 here. Maybe you could be more aggressive. And I've said this in another stream when it comes to the Fischer random. I've said that when it comes to pawn moves, look to have them doing more than just one thing. So I think with your B pawn push, it's doing more than one thing. It's allowing the queen to come out, the bishop to come out, but by going an additional square forward, it's allowing for the rook to maybe work right away. The B file can open up in a blink. We're exchanging from the standard position what we would call a knight pawn for a bishop pawn. In the beginning of the game, the central pawns you could start to regard as being, as having, let's say, a point value of 1. And as you move outward, you could consider the bishop pawns as being a value 0.9, and then the knight's 0.8 if you want to really get mathy with it. So anyhow, you would be having, if you did a knight pawn move like this with b5 and challenge the bishop pawn, what would really be going on? You have a 0.8 pawn challenging a 0.9 pawn. Anyhow, that might be getting a bit too mathy, but it's something that I do in my own games. And anyhow, I think it's purposeful to look into it from this setup, seeing how you already have a rook on b8. Well, maybe taking into account that I have this diagonal available, I could shoot right out here, give check to your king, maybe bring your knight out like I did, or get this other knight and get castled is going to be better. I think it's a bit uncomfortable to deal with the bishop coming off in this diagonal, and it's tough to start to defend now. This is quite tricky. My knight and the queen converging on this, so don't open up this diagonal so quickly. Consider b5 instead of b6, and maybe get both your knights out and get kingside castled. Okay. You are typing my way. Thank you very much. You are welcome.